Hey, what's up everybody? This is Joshua Casper. I'm here with Plugin Boutique, and today we're checking out the oscillators inside of SynthMaster 2. Specifically, we're going to talk about additive, vector, and wavetable oscillators, and then I'm going to show you how to import your multisamples, which will allow you to process them using SynthMaster 2's routing matrix and effects modules. So I've just got this patch right here. And what this is using is the additive oscillator. So the additive oscillator is like the basic oscillator, but it has 8 basic oscillators working together and interfering with one another to create a unique sound. So each one of these is kind of like its own basic oscillator, okay? And each one has a volume pan, detune, phase or tone control, frequency, wave, and algorithm. So right now I've got 3 different oscillators running together inside of the additive mode. And if I go ahead and just turn off the second oscillator here, SynthMaster 2 comes with 4 different oscillators, 2 per layer. You can see we've got 2 different layers here. I'm just going to stick with 1 layer with 1 oscillator. And to turn off that second oscillator, I just got to click right here to make sure it's deactivated. And if we want to make sure layer 2 is deactivated, that's down here in the lower right of the GUI. But anyway, keep that off. Jump back in here. So each one of these is essentially a basic oscillator, and when they're played together, the waveforms interfere with one another to create a unique sound. So you can watch what happens as I pull up the volume here on this second oscillator. So you can see that inside of the frequency here, we can choose between 1 or 0 and up to, let's see here just for a second, up to 32 different tones. And then we have semitones. So these are all in cents. We can go from 1 to, it looks like a lot more. Oh my goodness, look how far this goes. Up to 95 cents. So you can get quite a versatile range in terms of frequency. And like I said before, these are essentially, each one of these is a basic oscillator. If we go to basic right here. So we have all the waveforms available: sine, triangle, square, sawtooth, pulse, noise, and then any single cycle waveform we can use as well. And then we have the algorithm. So we can go low pass, high pass, and such. Band plus, band minus plus, sync, and other. So these are going to be pulse and a bit crusher if we wanted to. Let's go ahead and turn that on, maybe square, and let's turn this into a triangle. So really, you have a lot to work with here just inside of this one oscillator. So I'm sure you can imagine once you add a second oscillator and even maybe up to 3 more oscillators, you can get some really interesting sounds and complex sounds, to say the least. So this is a really fun way to get in and start tweaking and really coming up with something unique each and every time. So that brings us to the vector. Now the vector is like the additive oscillator, but there's only 4 basic oscillators running together. And what's really cool about this particular oscillator is that we can kind of blend between the 4 by using this XY graph right here. So it's really, really sweet. So again, we can come in and choose any of these waveforms that we want, maybe a sawtooth, pulse, noise if we wanted to, and let's just choose one more. Let's go with triangle. So again, a really unique way to get some really interesting results. Next up, we've got the new Wavetable, and the Wavetable oscillator is similar to the basic oscillator, except that the waveforms can be scanned or interpolated between 16 different waveform shapes. And we can actually cycle through them by using the index right here, you'll see that it's moving up and down. And you can see that we can actually load other waveforms right here as well. And as I add them, they'll be updated inside of the graphics. So if I can just keep going, and we can also choose different display types. Display, maybe 2D if we wanted to. And then as I change it, you'll see that it's changing here. I'm more of a fan of the 3D waveform to see where it is along the lines. And then we have, bits. You can see that it's kind of, here it's pretty rough and here it's a little bit more smooth. And again, we can go up to 16 of these things, so we can just keep adding stuff and it's going to keep tweaking it. So you can imagine, again, once you start routing these things to modulation sources or LFOs and stuff like that, you can get some really interesting results with a lot of movement. Now there's a couple other cool things I want to talk about inside of SynthMaster 2, and that is I can drag a wavetable from, say, Serum. So I've got my digital wavetables here. I can just drag and drop that right inside of there. So now I have my wavetable from my Serum library loaded inside of SynthMaster to use and do whatever I want with it. That's really sweet. So there's one other thing I want to bring your attention to, and that is the ability to drag and drop multisamples into the oscillator window. So you can process those multisamples using the routing matrix and modulation sources and effects from SynthMaster 2 on those multisamples. So I've got some multisamples right here. I'm just going to go ahead and select them and drag and drop them into here. And now look at it. So those are those multi-samples playing on that same piece of MIDI. Obviously, that's not the best piece of MIDI for bass lines, but I just wanted to show you that's how easy it is to drag and drop multi-samples into SynthMaster 2. Now, if I click right here and come into this window, you'll see that we can add any of these wavetables, but I also have multi-sample options right here. So I've got KV331s, I've got some from Vandalism. If I come in here to Vocal C2, now I have all of those multi-samples available, and what's really cool is I can actually keep cycling through them. Just like I would any other preset, but these are all multi-samples that have been loaded inside of SynthMaster 2. You can see that I have my own folder here. We've got Xsynth, Xenos Soundworks, Vandalism, and a few others. So super versatile synth. You can really do anything you want to do using these techniques and these oscillators. And remember, there are 4 of them. So anyway, I just wanted to share with you about these different oscillator types because SynthMaster 2 is such a versatile synth that it needs to be known that it can do this much and much, much more. Anyway, I hope you learned something. We'll see you next time.